Thank you. Is there any objection to that course of action being taken?
Yes.
There is.
Mr. Speaker.
I call the honourable member Phil Twyford.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to dedicate this speech to the memory of Kate Shepherd, a great New Zealander who was instrumental in bringing the vote to New Zealand women 119 years ago today. And I feel sure, sir, that if Kate Shepherd were in this House tonight as a member of this House of Representatives, she would be voting for Darian Fenton's bill. She would stand up for principles of accountability, of good governance, of transparency and public control of public institutions, sir. So let's see. This bill that Darian Fenton has brought to the House is based on the principles of good governance, openness, transparency and democratic control of public institutions. No wonder the National Party is not supporting it. Why are we surprised, Mr. Speaker? Why are we surprised? Because that would go against every bone in the National Party's body to actually open up public institutions to scrutiny and transparency and openness. After all, sir, transparency and accountability are the key principles of functioning markets. And if this National Party was true to its liberal tradition, the members in the House tonight from the National Party would be voting for Darian Fenton's bill. These are not left-wing ideas, openness and transparency. They are not the sole preserve of the left of politics. And a National Party that actually cared a jot about its own liberal tradition would surely support this bill. Mr. Speaker, the point's been made already that this bill is not just about the Ports of Auckland dispute that has racked the Auckland waterfront for most of the last 12 months. It is a bill that would extend openness and transparency and principles of environmental and social responsibility, accountability to the community. It would extend those obligations, sir, to publicly owned ports all around this country. But there's no denying that the Ports of Auckland dispute has shone a light on the issue that Darian Fenton is seeking to solve with this bill, sir. What did we see in the Ports of Auckland? We saw a company that's owned by the ratepayers, by the citizens of Auckland, a company developing a strategy to sack the wharfies on that port and contract out their jobs. A strategy that was found by the employment court to be illegal. The employer was told in an embarrassing backdown to go back to the negotiating table and actually treat its workers with respect and to negotiate an agreement, sir. We saw the most despicable behaviour that we've seen in a while, sir, from employers in industrial disputes. We saw the Ports of Auckland leaking personal information on its own employees to the right-wing blogger Cameron Slater. Well, what an outrage. That dispute, which should be laid fairly and squarely at the door of the board and the management of the Ports of Auckland, has not only cost the Auckland ratepayer millions of dollars, it cost the Auckland business community millions of dollars because the ports were shut down for so long. It damaged the asset that is the Ports of Auckland, that is owned by the people of Auckland. And yet, in spite of all those things, the management and the board of the Ports of Auckland were not required to come clean and tell Auckland Council and the democratically elected representatives of Aucklanders how much that dispute cost them. As if we need any more evidence, Mr. Speaker, that this National Party is a party of crony capitalism, of dirty deals done behind closed doors, that transparency is the last thing that this National Party wants. This is the party that corporatised 75% of local government in Auckland when it set up the Auckland Super City, shifting billions of dollars in assets and thousands of staff into commercial entities governed by hand-picked corporate boards picked by Rodney Hyde and Mark Ford. And so that even though there are special rules that govern CCOs, council-controlled organisations, like the one that owns the Ports of Auckland, all of these so-called council-controlled organisations do a great deal of their business behind closed doors, and that's the way this National Party likes it. We saw it in the corporatisation of Auckland, we saw it in the sacking of Environment Canterbury, we saw it in the refusal to vote for Annette King's bill that would have instilled some transparency and independence in the setting of executive salaries, and now these people are voting against this very good bill of Darian Fenton.
Point of order.
Speaker, I seek leave of the House to table a report from the Christchurch City Council detailing the council organisations under control of the council but which are not currently subject to the legislation, and that's a list including Christchurch Holdings, Selborne Plantation Board, Christchurch City Networks, Christchurch International Airport Limited, City Care, I'm trying to read that fast, like City Buildings Limited, Central Plains Water Trust, Littleton Port Company Limited, Orient New Zealand Limited, Rickett and Bush Trust, Redbus Limited, Selborne Plantations Board Limited again, and Transwaste Canterbury Limited, almost finished, Two Arm Limited, V-Base Limited, and that's the complete list, sir.
Is there any objection to that course of action? Sorry? Would the member like to tell the House what is the source of the document, please?
Yes, it's general and technical information from the Christchurch City Council, which I assume it's 2012.
From the Christchurch City Council.
2012.
Is there any objection to that course of action being taken? There is. Point of order. The Honourable Member Michael Woodhouse.
Mr Speaker, over the last few weeks I have been referring to, Mr Speaker, in respect of the process and speeches that are accompanying the tabling of documents, and I would draw your attention to Standing Orders 147, 4, 5 and 6 in this regard. Now, the House has considered this, and the Senior Opposition Whip did raise the point that the document itself had to be specified with some degree of particularity, I think his words were, which is correct. But what we have emerging is a long dissertation about what the document says, which I would suggest is starting to come into the realms of a speech. Now, this evening, I'm struggling to identify the source of the document, which is the purpose of the description, but I get a very long dissertation about what's in the document, and I wonder if you would reflect on whether or not those tabling requests are within Speaker's directions. Speaker's ruling.
Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Mr Speaker, the fact of the matter is that the Christchurch City Council is a substantial body and has a significant number of holdings, and the minimum thing that I'm required to do is to identify the holdings about which I speak from their official document to us to explain the ambit of the bill's effect upon them. And I've given it from the point of view of the general and technical information that was required. I couldn't put it any briefer than that, and I didn't make a long speech at all.
Can I just say, look, the impression that I took from the Right Honourable Winston Peters seeking the table of documents was that he only actually referred to the actual organisations. He did not speak, and I was quite happy to accept that. Right. Point of order, Honourable Member Michael Woodhouse.
Mr Speaker, I'm not going to challenge your perception of how the document was described, except to say that the point of tabling the documents is so that members can see and read them. Now, if the description is so thorough that they then go on to the Hansard, there's very little point in tabling the documents.
Well, speaking to the point of order.
Mr Speaker,
David Parker.
In fact, the Right Honourable Winston Peters didn't do that. He described each of the documents. If the senior whip's from the National Party concern was that the list of documents was too long, then that would have been a different point of order, but the Honourable Winston Peters didn't over-describe the documents. Can I refer you in particular, sir, to Speaker's Ruling 147 number 5, which was one of the Speaker's rulings to which the senior whip from the National Party referred, and it says the strategy of giving a long explanation and then saying, I table it, is not appropriate. When members are tabling documents, they should seek leave, give the purpose for leave, and then identify the document they wish to table so that other members can make an informed judgment on whether they should accept it. Indeed, even after his initial explanation, a member from the other side said, what is the source of the documents? Because they were effectively asserting that Mr. Peters' explanation had been too brief rather than too long. So I would invite you, sir, to rule that the tabling of the documents was in order.
Thank you. I had already done that. The table of documents is in order. I have made a decision on that. Point of order, the Honourable Member Michael Woodhouse.
I wonder if I could seek your clarification about whether the member was tabling one document or several, because the Honourable David Parker referred to them as several documents. My understanding is of the process of tabling documents is that they should be done one at a time.
Well, that's what the member was doing. He actually tabled them one at a time. That's the way I understood it. The member wishes to speak to that.
In the interest of settling
Winston
my
Peters.
colleagues concerned over there for the accuracy of the way it was presented, this is the Christchurch City Council having listed each page separately, the enterprise about which they speak, and I happen to get a stapler and staple them together, but they are all separate documents.
Thank you. I think the issue's finalised now. It's been settled. One final point.
Mr. Speaker, I just want to draw your attention to the fact that the Speaker's rulings referred to in this discussion, I think it's been a useful discussion, predate the change to the standing orders with regard to what can be tabled in the House. And, further Speaker's rulings from Speaker Smith, which were then, formalised in the change to the standing orders in the last Parliament. And that if we rewind the clock back several Parliaments, it was the practice of members at the end of a question, for example, to seek leave to table large numbers of media clippings, and they would go through them one at a time, and it would take up a lot of time. Now, one of the trade-offs with removing the ability to do that was that the much smaller number of documents that were permissible to be tabled had to be described in greater detail to establish whether or not, in fact, they did meet that criteria. So I think it's just important that the House take note of that some of these Speaker's rulings predate the current practice of the House, which has greatly reduced the number of documents that can be tabled.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Speaker.
I call the Honourable Member Chris Hipkins.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'm very happy to take an unexpected...
Point of order, the Honourable Member Andrew Williams.
Mr. Speaker, for a relatively new member of this House, can I just ask clarification? I heard the Chief Whip from the National Party specifically ask for the documents to be tabled so they could ascertain what the documents were, and he wanted clarification as to what they were. These were provided, and then they declined to allow them to be tabled. Does he want it one way or the other? Because he asked for clarification what was being tabled, he sought the information, and then declined to have them tabled. Which way does he want it?
All right. I will ask the member, is there any objection to that course of action being taken? The leave is being resought. No objection. Right. Now, the Right Honourable Winston Peters, point of order.
I seek leave of the House to table a report from the Marlborough District Council detailing the Council's organisations under control of the Council, and which again certainly is not under the ambit of this legislation, which is the two lists are MDC Holdings Limited and the Marlborough Housing for the Elderly Trust.
Is there any objection to that course of action being taken? There is none. No objection. I call the Honourable Member Chris Hipkins.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I am very happy to take a call on this